On June 14th, 2015, deputies found the body of a woman laying face down in the bedroom of her home in a pool of blood from stab wounds that were inflicted days earlier. There was no sign of her daughter, which at this time was 23, by the name of Gypsy Rose, who, according to neighbors, had several conditions, including muscular dystrophy, asthma, leukemia, and the mental capacity of a 7-year-old due to her premature birth. After reading several troubling Facebook posts earlier in that evening, concerned neighbors notified the police, reporting that Dee Dee might have fallen victim to foul play and that they did not know whether Gypsy Rose, who was in a wheelchair and on several medications, was in the home by themselves. They were afraid, basically, that this family was abducted. So the next day, after finding this woman's body, who we now know to be Claudine, also known as Dee Dee, they found Gypsy Rose in Wisconsin, where she had traveled with her boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, whom she had met online. When the investigators announced that she was actually an adult and she did not have any physical and mental health issues her mother claimed she had, public outrage over the possible abduction of this disabled girl then turned into now people no longer having sympathy for Gypsy Rose. Further investigations found that some of the doctors who examined Gypsy had found no evidence of several claimed disorders that her mother had stated that she had. One physician even suspected that Dee Dee had fictitiously imposed these disorders on her child, and that she herself may have had her own mental disorders because she fabricated or induced illnesses to her child to obtain sympathy or attention. But yet, for some reason, all of this slipped through the cracks. My question to you guys is, if you haven't heard this story, knowing what we know now, do we feel that it's right for Gypsy to be out of jail? I'm going to read this article that I found on biography.com, and I'm going to leave the link below. Some of what you hear may have been something similar to what I already said, but this is just going to give a little bit further of a breakdown of the story of Gypsy Rose and her mother. So, Gypsy Rose's mother, Dee Dee, falsely claimed her daughter was suffering from different illnesses until Gypsy arranged for her boyfriend to kill her mother in 2015. This was written by Sarah Kettler, and it was updated in December of 2003. Gypsy Rose Blanchard grew up with her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, making claims about her health that resulted in a series of dire diagnoses and medical interventions. However, Gypsy wasn't actually unwell. Her mother had been lying about her symptoms for years. Now, experts believe that Dee Dee's behavior stemmed from a mental disorder that we all may know of now called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Because Dee Dee wanted to be a caretaker, she faked illness and induced things in her daughter. The truth about Gypsy and her mother came out after Gypsy arranged for her online boyfriend to murder her mother. Now, if you have never seen I believe it's on Hulu, the series, it's a mini series called The Act, you should watch it because it's really good. And even though they added a little bit more stories to what happened, a lot of the things that we witnessed in The Act, like this young lady's teeth being pulled because of the rot from all the medications, and her having to have a feeding tube, and her mother forcing her to be in a wheelchair, were all recorded. Her mother making her shave her head because at one point she was saying that she had cancer, were all shown on this movie. And I feel like when you see it, it may give you a pause to wonder, like, I don't want to say that Dee Dee didn't deserve to go to jail. Not Dee Dee, Gypsy didn't deserve to go to jail. I do believe that Gypsy deserved to go to jail. But I feel like so many other things slipped in the cracks that this girl really was cheated out of a good portion of her life and forced to be in pain and forced to endure testing and take medication that to this day, I'm sure they don't know all the additional effects other than the rotting of her teeth that it may have caused. So Dee Dee began pretending that Gypsy had different illnesses as early on as Gypsy being a baby. Gypsy Rose, who was born in 1991, was a baby when her mother claimed that she had sleep apnea. When Gypsy was 8 years old, Dee Dee described her as suffering from leukemia and muscular dystrophy, and she said she required a wheelchair and a feeding tube. Imagine that. You're capable of eating, but your mother, who is imposing whatever illnesses that she's going through onto you, is telling doctors that you need a feeding tube. And then I'm looking at the doctors like, why is it that you all didn't see that this young lady did not need these things? So the list of medical problems that Dee Dee relayed about her daughter would go on to include seizures, asthma, and hearing and visual impairments. Due to Dee Dee's actions, Gypsy was prescribed a litany of medications and had to sleep using a breathing machine. She also went through multiple surgeries, including procedures on her eyes and a removal of her salivary glands. When Gypsy's teeth rotted, perhaps due to her medications, missing salivary glands, or neglect, they were pulled out. And that alone is painful. Yet, the truth was that Gypsy could walk. Gypsy did not need a feeding tube, and Gypsy didn't have cancer. Her head was bald only because her mother shaved off her hair. I don't know what you all are taught, but I've always been taught that my hair is a part of my crown. And to know that her mother deliberately put her through the trauma of shaving her hair every time it grew just to continue to fabricate this story, to be a thief basically, because so many things were given to them because of these disabilities that Gypsy supposedly had that we now know she didn't even have. Experts believe that Dee Dee had a mental illness, as I said earlier. It's also called a fictitious disorder imposed on another, which made her fabricate her daughter's ill health in order to receive attention and sympathy for taking care of a sick child. Dee Dee appeared to be charming, devoted mother, so people believed her. So despite all of this, despite what I'm sure if they ran testing may have shown, she managed to convince doctors that there were things that were wrong with her child. So medical tests often show inclusive or contradictory results reading for Gypsy's diagnosis, but Dee Dee would stop seeing any doctors who questioned her daughter's ailments. And many caregivers went along with what Dee Dee wanted. She had some nurses training so she could accurately describe symptoms, and she sometimes gave Gypsy medication to mimic certain conditions. So if I'm saying that my child has problems focusing, or my child is delayed, or things of that nature, then what she did was she gave her daughter medication to mimic that, to show that. How twisted is that? When Gypsy was old enough to talk, Dee Dee instructed her to not volunteer any information during appointments. She was always the one relaying Gypsy's fake medical history. Now, Dee Dee told Gypsy's father, Rod Blanchard, who I have my own issues as far as that's concerned, but she told that man that their daughter had a chromosomal disorder that had led to her many health issues. He complimented Dee Dee for her devoted care. When some of Dee Dee's family noticed that Gypsy didn't seem to need a wheelchair and asked questions, Dee Dee and Gypsy moved away. So you're hearing, as a father, from the family that this young lady appears to be getting better and doesn't need that wheelchair. You question your child's mother on it, and rather than figuring out what's going on, she ups and leaves with that child. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blame him completely, because if she left and she didn't tell him where she was going or pass on a different information, I could see how that may be hard. But I do feel like he should have put some type of notice out there to the police officers or something of that sort to make sure that his daughter was being protected. Dee Dee claimed to be a victim of Hurricane Katrina, so she and Gypsy received assistance to relocate from Louisiana to Missouri in 2005. There, Dee Dee continued to bring Gypsy to doctor's appointments. Hurricane Katrina also provided an excuse for why she wasn't able to provide doctors with medical documentation, because look, we can blame it on Hurricane Katrina. The fact that she did that too is messed up, because there are real people who really were affected by that, but this woman took advantage of it. Even when Gypsy was a teenager, Dee Dee still claimed she was sick and began to lie about Gypsy's age, to the point where Gypsy sometimes was not certain about how old she was. In 2008, Gypsy and Dee Dee moved into a new home in Springfield, Missouri. It was built by Habitat for Humanity. It was painted pink, and they added a wheelchair ramp. Of course they would, because to their knowledge, this person could not walk. This child could not walk. Gypsy and Dee Dee also received benefits that included charity sponsored visits to concerts and Disney World. All along, Dee Dee continued to bask in the attention she received for being a devoted caretaker. So, nothing's wrong with this girl. Keep that in mind as I'm reading this. Nothing is wrong with this girl, but we're going to keep enjoying the fact that we're reaping all these benefits because of her supposed sickness. And as a result, a spot that could have went to someone else is going to be taken away solely because I'm sitting here acting like there's something wrong with my child. When Gypsy was 14, she saw a neurologist in Missouri who came to believe that she was the victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy. However, this doctor never reported her case to the authorities. What is wrong with this doctor? Why is it that this doctor feels like they shouldn't have reported it? They dropped the ball. There were so many instances where I'm like, okay, this girl could have gotten out of some of this had the people really looked out for her, okay? However, the doctor never reported it. In later interviews, he stated his belief that there wasn't enough evidence to act. So in 2009, an anonymous report was made to authorities stating that Dee Dee's accounts of Gypsy's ailments had no medical basis. This resulted in 2 caseworkers visiting their home, but Dee Dee convinced them nothing was wrong, because I'm sure what Dee Dee did, like what they showed in the movie The Act, was that she gave, once she saw that the caseworkers were out there, she gave Gypsy, and I don't know if this is true, this was just in the part that they showed in the series, but she gave Gypsy medication to make it appear as if she had those symptoms. So Gypsy grew older. Dee Dee began to lie about her age, going as far to alter dates on her birth certificate to make her daughter seem younger. And I'm sure some of that probably also had to do with what they were getting, the benefits and things of that nature, because people like to pour more into kids, right? If I see a child that is struggling versus an adult, I'm not going, okay, your mom is there, great. But I'm not going to maybe give as willingly and as quickly to an adult versus that child. But Gypsy still was becoming harder for Dee Dee to control, because at this point, she's a teenager. I'm sure there's things that she wants to do. Keep in mind, she is being sheltered. She has never had a first kiss. She's never had a boyfriend. At this point, she wasn't even going to school. She received her education through movies. Disney princess and things of that nature. She was very childlike, even the way that she speaks. She spoke from a very demure, quiet, soft tone, and it served its purpose. Gypsy convinced a man that she met online to kill her mother. In 2001, Gypsy tried to get away from her mother by running away with the man that she had met at a science fiction convention. But Dee Dee soon tracked them down via mutual friends. She convinced the man that Gypsy was a minor, even though at the time, Gypsy was 19 years old. According to Gypsy, Dee Dee smashed her computer and physically restrained her to her bed after they returned home. Gypsy also stated her mother would sometimes hit her and deny her food. Gypsy eventually managed to get back online. She joined a Christian dating site where she met Nicholas Godejohn. Now that's interesting that she met the person who ended up killing her mother on a Christian website. She told him the truth about her mother's actions and ended up asking him to kill Dee Dee so they could be together. In June 2015, he came to her house, stabbed Dee Dee while Gypsy was waited with her ears covered in the bathroom. Gypsy and Godejohn, according to Gypsy, it doesn't say it in this article, but they went as far as to, after the stabbing of her mom, they proceeded to have sex. So this is how, like, lack of concern that she had, how she was just over it and she wanted to get out of there. And it's when you hear it like that, it really is cruel, okay? So Gypsy and Godejohn returned to his home in Wisconsin where they were found by police. Gypsy had posted on Facebook twice account that she shared with her mother, writing things like that B is dead. She later explained that she made that post because she wanted her mother's body to be discovered. But Gypsy wasn't smart because, of course, they traced that to see where it was coming from. That's what IT people do. That's one of the good things, I guess, sometimes about social media. So Gypsy was afraid and she believed that she didn't have anyone to trust. After Dee Dee's murder, many people who knew Gypsy wondered why she had gone so far as to kill her mom. Since she could walk, all she had to do was expose Dee Dee by standing up in public, which that does seem like that's all she had to do. But I wonder what fears were associated with that for her. Because if you're getting hit and stuff for the things that you're doing wrong in the house, I can only imagine what would have happened had she had done that in public. Yet Gypsy had been conditioned to think no one would believe her. She explained, "I couldn't just jump out of the wheelchair because I was afraid and I didn't know what my mother would do. I didn't have anyone to trust." The fact was that Gypsy had spent her entire life being controlled and monitored by her mother. She wasn't allowed to go to school. Although Gypsy was of normal intelligence, Dee Dee told everybody that her daughter had a mental defect, that she had a mental disorder, that she couldn't do things, that she had the capabilities of a 7-year-old. When they were out in public, she constantly held her hand, squeezing it when Gypsy didn't do what she was supposed to do or when she wasn't quiet. One of the doctors, Dr. Mark Feldman, an expert in Munchausen syndrome by proxy, said of Gypsy's life and actions, "The control was total in the same sense that the control of a kidnapped victim sometimes is. Her daughter was, in essence, a hostage." And I think we can understand the crime that occurred subsequently in terms of a hostage trying to gain escape. Now out of prison, Gypsy is not happy that her mother is dead. As Gypsy's medical records documented the abuse she'd been subjected to, her lawyer was able to arrange a plea deal for her charges she faced in Dee Dee's death. In 2016, she pled guilty to second-degree murder and she was sentenced to 10 years. She served 85% of that sentence and she was released in December of 2023. Now, her accomplice, Godejohn, was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2018 and was sentenced to life in prison. Me, personally, I'm not sure how I feel about the sentences. It would be hard for me if I was a judge to determine what was deserved. I do believe that she did deserve some time, but part of me also struggles with just how much time, because a life was taken because she arranged it. Godejohn wouldn't have taken her mother's life had she have not asked him to do so. I also don't know if I really feel like Godejohn deserves a life sentence. You all let me know your thoughts down below as far as that's concerned. As I said before, one of the things that I like about this channel is that we can agree to disagree. Just please, if you all are debating in the comment section, let's keep it, polite. Let's not get disrespectful with it, okay? Because he was sentenced to life in prison for something that was someone else's idea, as well as he is on the spectrum. Not excusing that. I understand that he knows the difference between right and wrong, but I feel like for her to have done less than 10 years, even though she was the one abused, it's kind of hard to see him, in my opinion, doing life. Should he do time? Yes. How much of that? I don't know. Maybe life with the possibility of parole, maybe 40 years. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the judge. So Gypsy has stated it was only after Dee Dee's death that she realized the extent of her mother's deception. While she had known that she could walk and eat regular food, she did believe that she had leukemia. Today, Gypsy is healthy. She also says she's enjoyed more freedom in prison than in the life that she had with Dee Dee. That is insane. But then go back to thinking you're being forced to be in a wheelchair and act like you're infantile when you're not. I'm sure that had to take a toll on her over the years. However, when asked by Dr. Phil if she was glad her mother was dead, she stated, "I'm glad that I'm out of the situation, but I'm not happy that she is dead." As of now, Gypsy is out, and Gypsy also is married, and she's been putting some interesting things online. I'm not gonna go over all of that stuff, but she's been putting some stuff out online. Let me see. That's about it. She seems to be happy. Her husband is a teacher, and they married a year before she was released, and now she is out. And I hope that despite what transpired and despite what she went through, that she does really feel remorseful for what was done to her mother, that she also gets all of the counseling that she needs, because to have gone through 23 years of that abuse, that's deep. And that's not anything that a few years is going to erase. That's something that will forever be with her. So I just hope that she's allowed to become a productive member of society, that she truly is remorseful, and that nothing like this happens ever again. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. And until next time.